Jai Prabhuji. Hello everybody and welcome to our course of the book of Prabhuji, Kundalini Yoga, The Power is in You. This is the book which is the foundation for everything that we're sharing in regards to this ancient path of the Kundalini. My name is Radha Devi and I am a monastic disciple of Prabhuji. Today we are going to continue with our series of classes in regards to the Svadhisthana chakra, which is the sacral chakra or the second center. We had 2 previous classes where we deepen and we start to familiarize ourselves with different attributes and properties that are related with this center. First, we started by deepening into the attitude in regards to the desire, the pleasure, and how this can conclude, how this can end with the renunciation. And then we continue also deepening and understanding, exploring how this center is very intimate, is very related also to our sexuality. And we saw how this sexuality can become sublimated, can be a sublimation of this sexuality. We saw that for the sexuality itself, there are 3 different views, which are the Puritan, the Libertine, and the religious one. And the religious one is the one that is providing us with this invitation, with this suggestion of the sublimation. It's telling us that when we have a taste of something higher, of something of the divine, it's so easy for this renunciation that we spoke in the first class to happen by itself. And we began this class speaking about this paragraph that we found in the Ishavasi Upanishad, commented by Prabhuji, how the word was enjoy by renouncing. And we saw how actually someone that loves can sacrifice and can actually enjoy by giving and not only by consuming. But the person that actually loves can contribute and can renounce easily or even sacrifice for others when there is this love present. But when there is no love, we are only consuming and we are attached and we are hoarding and accumulating possessions. But when there is something higher than us, it's so easy to sacrifice for others. We spoke about the vegetarianism, like it's very easy to, when you love the animals, to stop eating meat, for example. And we saw all these connections between the going after pleasure, what's going to happen when we have this a permissive attitude towards sexuality. When we just allow ourselves to have this libertine view, we become slaves of it. And we are going to continue sharing more properties in regards to this center today, and we are going to see how these different properties are so connected to things that we already spoke. And the first thing that we're going to start sharing during this class is in regards to the element or the tattva that we mentioned it before, which is the water or apa tattva or apas. What we see is that all liquidity in this universe is actually an expression of this element. And we see it at a macrocosmical level when we see the seas, the lakes, the river, but we also see it in a microcosmical level in ourselves, in our body, with the bloodstream, with the bile, with the lymphatic fluids, and all the fluids that are present in our body. So this is going to be this element of water expressed at a macrocosmical level and at a microcosmical level. This element is also going to be related to the tongue, and remember this because after we're going to see that the organ that is going to be related to this center is also going to be the tongue. So it's related to the tongue, to the appetite, also to the reproductive organs, and also by the absorption of the nutrients. This element is also going to control the sexual hormones, and it influences the bladder, the kidneys, also the sexual organs, the blood, and also gastric juices. It's according what we're going to see also in regards to this element, to the water, is that according to the Ayurvedic medicine, the water is going to balance what we call the Tri-Dosha. The Tri-Dosha are basic principles or moods. This is the way that is translated. It's usually translated as moods or basic principles. So what we're going to see, because our parenthesis of the class is we're going to be sharing more about this theory. But before we enter to it, I wanted to mention that as we saw in our first center in the Muladhara chakra, that the element that was associated with that center was earth. We also have this element in the second center, which is water, and we saw that it can influence us positively or negatively. When this element is positively influencing people, then they are going to develop positive feelings towards others. But on the other hand, a symptom that there is a negative influence of this element is going to be excessive emotion. So, as many of the things that we discussed during these classes, there is usually going to be a negative influence and a positive influence. And now I want us to delve to get to know more about this Tri-Dosha theory, because other thing that we saw in our classes of the first center, which is kind of a map of everything that we're going to get to know, to understand, to explore in regards to all the centers that we're missing, is the fact that it's also related to a Vio element or dosha. So this is why I want us to get to know more what is this Tri-Dosha for someone that never heard about it. Then you can understand more what is it that we are referring to when we're saying that this element is also related to a certain dosha, and how it's going to influence the functioning of the center itself. So the Tri-Dosha theory is coming from the ancient science of the Ayurveda, which is the oldest known from the healthcare of the world. Many times it is going to be called the mother of all healing, and what we know is that it was originated in India maybe 5,000 years ago or even more. So the same way that we have, for example, the traditional Chinese medicine from China, originated from China, then we have the Ayurvedic medicine, which is originated from India, and as we just heard many times, it's called the mother of all the healing because it was originated even more than 5,000 years ago. The Ayurveda is a science of self-understanding. What it's telling us is that by understanding our own unique nature or our constitution, we can actually begin to understand how to interact with the environment, and also to make choices that is going to lead us to a greater health. So the Ayurveda is going to define disease as a natural end result of living out of harmony with one's constitution. We have our specific constitution, which is what we're going to be dwelling and sharing more about in this Tri-Dosha theory. And we have the environment. So we are getting in contact with the environment. The environment, it's in contact with our constitution, and what Ayurveda is telling us that the disease is a natural result when we are not in harmony with the environment and our constitution. So as we mentioned when we started to speak about Ayurveda, it's about self-understanding, understanding ourselves and see how we can play with our constitution, with self-knowledge, and do the right choices for our constitution and for us to improve our health. So our constitution is going to be inherent of the balance of energies within our body and our mind, and it's going to describe who we are in a most fundamental level. The science of understanding this nature, or our constitution, is going to be the science of the Tri-Dosha. The Tri-Dosha is defining three fundamental energies or principles, which we call moods earlier, and they are going to be governing the functions of our body on the physical and also in the emotional level. So these three energies are known as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and each individual has a unique balance of all three of these energies. Some people is going to have predominant in one, while others is going to have a mixture of two, and sometimes people have a mixture of these three energies. So let's start to make things clear. We have Tri-Dosha, the name comes. We already saw that Tri means three, and then Dosha means humor, and many times it can be translated as energy. We also see it in the book as bio-element. So we have three moods, basically. We saw that these three moods are going to be Vata, Kapha, and Pitta. So now, also what we saw is that it's related to our constitution. These energies are going to be balancing our constitution in our body. They are around our body and they are in charge of different organs. They are related to different emotions too. So now we can see better how each of these specific energies is going to influence ourselves and our constitution. We have the Vata dosha. The Vata dosha is said that it's made of air and ether elements. So it's going to mean that the qualities which are similar to these elements, like the quality of the person, are going to be similar to this air and ether. So Vata is going to be very much like wind, which is light, cool, is dry, and it's very mobile. Like someone that it's in a lot of movement will be someone that maybe has Vata predominant. So in the body, the people with Vata nature experience more of these qualities. Their bodies are going to tend to be light, their bones are thin, and their skin and their hair are dry. They often move and speak quickly, and when they are out of balance, maybe they will lose weight, they become constipated. This is a very specific quality of the Vata. When they are unbalanced, they are going to become constipated, and they are also going to have weakness in their immune and nervous system. Something else is that these qualities are also going to be reflected in their personality, as we mentioned earlier. So those with the Vata nature tend to be very talkative, enthusiastic, creative, very energetic. But when it's out of balance, they may also become confused and overwhelmed, and they have difficulty focusing and making decisions, and sometimes they have insomnia, they have trouble sleeping. Then also these specific qualities when the Vata is unbalanced are going to become more apparent when they are under stress. So emotionally, they are challenged by cool emotions like worry, fear, and anxiety. So this is from the Vata dosha, and now we can get to know more about the Pitta dosha. The Pitta dosha is made up fire and the water elements. The fire is going to be more predominant, and those people with a predominant Pitta nature, they have many qualities of the fire within them. They tend to be hot, sharp and very penetrating, and it's also somehow volatile and oily. So the oily nature of Pitta is related to this secondary component of the water. So people with a Pitta nature reflect these qualities. They're going to tend to feel warm and have somehow oily skin. They have very penetrating eyes and very sharp features. They have moderate weight and also good musculature. And when they are out of balance, they tend towards diarrhea, infections of the skin and rashes, also weakness in the liver and on the blood. These qualities are also going to reflect in their personalities. So Pitta people tend to be highly focused, they are competitive, they are capable, they are courageous, they are very energetic, and they are also clear communicators. They like to solve problems, and when they are under stress, then it's different. They are digging in their heels. They can also become overly intense and speak, as we spoke about sharpness, with a sharp tongue, with this expression. They make great friends but also feared enemies, and emotionally they are challenged by the heated emotions. We saw how this is related with the fire. So then the emotions, the heated ones, are going to be anger, resentment, and also jealousy. This was the Pitta dosha. Finally, we have the Kapha dosha. Within the Kapha, the elements that are going to be predominant are the water and the earth. So like these elements, Kapha is going to tend to be cool, very moist, stable, and also heavy because of the earth. So in the body, these qualities are going to manifest as dense, heavy bones, stubble skin. These people are going to have low metabolism. And in addition, those with the Kapha nature, they tend to feel cool. When it's out of balance, Kapha individuals are very prone to gaining weight, and they tend to have weaknesses in their lungs, also in their sinuses, where there is an accumulation of mucus. So those with Kapha nature are also prone to non-insulin dependent diabetes. Like these are diseases that are related to this specific dosha. The elements of the water and earth are also reflected in the personality. So the heavy and stable nature of the Kapha is going to reflect in them, like they are very stable and they don't have these quick fluctuations like we saw earlier in regards to the Vata, that Vata is more movement. So they are going to be very not be able to focus. In the opposite, then we have here Kapha, that they are not so prone to these fluctuations. So those with Kapha can handle stress very well and often not even noticing that it exists. They don't like to change. They are generally very conservative and they prefer to keep things as they are. They are also comfort seekers. This it's going to relate to their soft, watery nature. So too much comfort, however, can lead to a lack of motivation and a feeling of becoming stuck. When the Kapha is out of balance, they will have these heavy emotions of depression and lethargy. So here we are seeing how each of these doshas have a specific elements. We're speaking now about the element of the water, and because we understood and deepened a little bit more in regards to the water, I wanted us to also understand about the Tri-Dosha and what we are speaking about when we are mentioning the dosha that is related to certain center. So what I want us to see, it's kind of the big picture and how everything is connected. Like we see, okay, if the Kapha is more related to water and earth, and we spoke about earth also in our first center, we understand that it's not, as we spoke about, it's not only a fist of earth or a glass of water, but the qualities that are related to it, the liquidity of the water, the heaviness of the earth, or this stability. And we also see how everything depends on the balance of it. We have a negative influence and a positive influence, the same way that we've been speaking in regards to an excessive energy loading, an overload of energy in a center, or when it's blocked, when it's at deficit of energy, like it's not assimilating as much energy as it needs to, it's influencing both of these directions are negative influencing, and it's going to provide different symptoms in ourselves, both emotionally, mentally, in a psychological level, and also physically in our different organs that are going to be related to a specific center, and in this theory to a specific energy. So we see how everything that we've been sharing is so connected with all the centers and their influence in ourselves, and the idea is to understand more how all of these things are working in ourselves, all these different energies, so we can actually make the right choices, as we heard, to improve our health, to have a greater health, and obviously that this will help us in our path as sadhakas, as practitioners in this path of the retroprogressive yoga, in this path of self-realization. I want us to continue because we're going to see very soon also how more things that we're going to share are going to be related to everything that we've been sharing today. The color of this chakra, we saw it in our first class with the yantra, it's going to be orange, and the color of the tattva, which is a water, what we just shared, is going to be white. We have a power associated with this center. It's going to be the power of communicating with the astral plane and astral beings. What we see is that during the ascension from the first center to the third center, there are certain mystic powers that are awakened. And what they are is that they are considered as tests of our maturity. And this is something that I want to stay more. We see, as I just said, there are certain powers that are going to be awakened, mystical powers, in the ascension of the Kundalini, when the Kundalini is perforating the first three centers. But as we just heard, they are a test of our maturity. I don't know if you remember when we spoke about the grantees, that we need to actually transcend, we need to sublimate certain attachments in order for these grantees, these knots, to open. And now we're also speaking about the centers. There are certain things that we need to transcend in order for the center to actually open. And the opening of this center is a direct expression of our maturity. We also heard it when we were speaking about the ascending, the awakening, the ascending, and the descending of the Kundalini Shakti. We spoke how the ascension of the Kundalini is going to be like a thermometer, the same way that the thermometer is measuring our temperature, then the ascension of the Kundalini is measuring our spiritual maturity. So what I want to put clear is the fact that whatever is happening, these mystical powers, this opening of the different centers, are actually a symptom of our maturity. And it comes from our internal work, our internal exploration, not from something from the exterior, but in our search, when we deepen ourselves in our interior. And we already spoke about the meaning of these words, like I don't mean from the skin inside, but more in a level of consciousness. So this, everything that is happening, like we just heard, it's a test of our maturity. of our level of consciousness. So we are going to see it during the process, and we're going to even delve even more in regards to this in our classes, where we're going to be speaking about the sadhana of the Kundalini. The animal that is related to this chakra is the crocodile. This is the crocodile in Hinduism. It's going to be considered the vehicle, the vahana of Ganga and Varuna, which is the lord of the cosmic oceans, who is also mentioned in the Vedas as the most important god after Indra. The crocodile, as we see, it's one of the largest and more ferocious reptiles in the animal kingdom, and it has also so much strength that it can dismember its prey in the water. Its skin has scales, which are like an armor for their durability and also for their resistance. And we many times see these different videos and images of the crocodiles when they are submerged underwater, and you can only see the crocodile's eyes and the wings of its nose. So they can watch their prey without being seen, and they can make different surprise attacks. The crocodile moves in the water with ease and very amazing agility. It's also so the crocodile is going to represent the grave dangers of the sexuality and of pleasure in general, as well as the idleness and insensitivity. So connecting too much with this center energy can result in an excessive attraction to pleasure and sensual enjoyment. So the life of a person like this is going to be characterized by permissiveness. So this is what I was talking about when I said, okay, let's continue speaking about the other different properties, because we see, okay, now we bring the animal that is related to the center, which is the crocodile. And it's telling us how when we are identified with this center, when we follow the different attributes and characteristics that are related to this center, what can happen? What are the dangers? So this crocodile is going to come and give us the danger of following these attributes of sexuality, and how the life of a person that is going to follow blindly this sexuality is going to be permissiveness. The permissiveness we saw is the libertine view, is the one that makes you a slave, because you are following blindly this energy of the sexuality. It's not a conscious approach. It's not this sublimation approach where you're actually exploring this natural energy of the human being and associating with it in a more transcendental view, in a more because we saw when we spoke about the desire, like it's an affective energy, it's an affective way to relate to it, but at the same time we're putting consciousness, we're bringing this awareness, and by bringing it, it has its own healing power, and we can actually transcend and sublimate, because we saw how one of the symptoms of having an unbalanced second center can be even the addiction to sex. But when we bring this awareness, this power of awareness, there is a healing power in the awareness itself, in bringing consciousness. So we saw in this case with the crocodile the dangers of connecting with this center blindly and not actually with the system of the chakras and with this path that we are sharing about, which is the Kundalini Yoga. The planar loka of this center is it's going to correspond to the astral plane or the Vuvar loka. This plane of existence and consciousness, it's going to be parallel to our physical reality. When we are sleeping, we expand in order to enter to the astral world, which is completely unknown to most people. we penetrated with the astral body, which is the Sukshma Sharira or the Linga Sharira. And remember that this is similar to our physical body, but it's much more subtle. We saw it in our classes of the Panchakoshas, the 5 sheets. We saw that the Linga Sharira or Sukshma Sharira, which is the sheath of the astral body, the subtle sheath, it's going to be the same. It's going to be very similar to our physical body, which is tangible, this one that we can see, but it's even more subtle, and it's in this astral plane. And we are actually going to this plane when we are sleeping, and we saw here that for most people is unknown, because there is actually people that can communicate in this plane, but it's not the subject of our class. So we're going to continue by speaking about the subtle element or the tammatra of this center, which is rasa or taste. What we are going to see is that the Svadhisthana chakra is connected to the sense of taste, which is maybe one of the most sensitive and more intimate of our senses. We can detect 5 different basic tastes, which are the sweet, the salty, the sour, the bitter, and the umami, which is this the taste of the glutamic acid that we usually encounter in meats and also in cheeses. So the ability to taste is giving us the opportunity to avoid poisonous substances and also rotten food. And when we translate this in the religious and the spiritual sense, the taste is going to represent our ability to identify things that can be harmful to our religious development or to our spiritual health. What we see is that the loss of sense of the taste, it can be an indication to different health problems like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and also of some degenerative diseases of the nervous system like Parkinson or Alzheimer. So in the process of the Sanatana Dharma, the sense of taste is going to be spiritualized. Remember when we were speaking about the tattvas that we see in the manifestation of the universe, the spirit is materialized, and then in the opposite direction, in this path of the Kundalini, then the matter is spiritualized. So in the same way, the Sanatana Dharma, the Hinduism, it's coming to give us that the sense of taste is spiritualized. And for this reason, the serious aspirants, the sadhakas, are strictly prohibited from consuming toxic chemicals, drugs, cigarettes, coffee, and many times even tea. It is recommended also, for example, to fast 1 day a month or 1 day a week in order to become aware of how much this sense is controlling our mind and is dominating our life. There is something also that I read very related to this in the book of the Kundalini Yoga by Swami Shivananda, and it's also giving us more information in regards to the sense of the taste. And there is, at the beginning of the book, in the first few chapters, is speaking about the diet. First, it's speaking about the qualities of a sadhaka, and it's saying like someone that is obese or someone that doesn't have the control of this sense of the taste of this organ, which is the tongue, is someone that doesn't even have the qualities to aspire for this path, the path of yoga, the sadhana of the yoga. And then it's telling us that the food itself, it's going to place a very prominent place in the yoga sadhana. And it says that an aspirant should be very careful in the selection of the articles of sattvic nature, especially in the beginning of the sadhana period, because we will see that when someone is advanced and different siddhis, different powers are obtained, then there are many restrictions that are removed. And it's telling us that the purity of food leads to the purity of mind. And it's telling us how the sattvic food helps to meditation. So I want us to bring back, when we spoke about the different gunas, I'm speaking now about sattvic food, which is coming from the guna of tattva. We saw the different gunas, different modes of nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So we saw how in order for us to transcend these three gunas, we need to actually be in the mode of sattva. So everything that we do in our sadhana is in order for us to provide a sattvic environment, a sattvic mood. So we also need to combine it with sattvic food. There is a specific diet that we're going to be sharing more in our classes in the sadhana. And now we are just mentioning it because we're speaking about the tongue and the sense of the taste. So we see how important it is to actually follow it and how it's influencing in our development, like how important it is. The discipline of food is very necessary for yogic sadhana, because if the tongue is controlled, all the other indriyas are controlled. This is what Swami Shivananda is telling us in the book. So imagine the power of the tongue. Let's continue then speaking and exploring about the gland that is related to the center, which is the gonads or the sexual glands. The gonads are the male and female primary reproductive organs, and the male gonads are going to be the testes or testicles, and the female gonads are the ovaries. And I want us to just briefly understand a little bit more about these glands, about these sexual organs, and how they're going to be involved in the production of different hormones that are going to affect ourselves. So these reproductive system organs are necessary for sexual reproduction. We saw how the center is so related to sexuality, to sex. We saw when we saw also even the deity that is presiding the center is Vishnu, which is the preserver, and how it's connected then to this sexuality that is connected to this center. So they are also going to be responsible for the production of the male and the female gametes. The gametes are the sexual organs. So the gonads also produce sex hormones that are needed for the growth and the development of primary and secondary reproductive organs and structures. The female gonad hormones are going to be primary hormones of the ovaries, which are the estrogens and also the progesterone. I'm sure that many are already familiar with these two names. The estrogens are a group of female sex hormones which are important for the reproduction and the development of the female sex characteristics. And the estrogens are responsible for the growth and the maturation of the uterus and the vagina, also for breast development. And it's also involved in the widening of the pelvis, the distribution of fat in the hips, in the thighs. Also, the uterus changes during the menstrual cycle, and also it's going to increase the growth of body hair. So this is the estrogen. And then we have the progesterone, which is a hormone that functions to prepare the uterus for the conception. So we're seeing here how these different hormones are very related to everything that is related to the sexual organs. Also, this specific hormone is going to help to increase the desire of health. It's going to stimulate the gland of the milk production during pregnancy. So we see how everything is related to sexuality, procreation. And then we have the male gonad hormones, which are mainly the androgens. Androgens are hormones that primarily influence in the development of the male reproductive system. So although it's found in much higher levels in men, androgens are also produced in women. We see that the testosterone is going to be the main androgen that is going to be secreted by the testicles. The testosterone is a sex hormone that is important for the development of the male sex organs and also for sex characteristics. It's going to be responsible for the increased muscle and bone mass, also the increased growth of body hair, the development of broad shoulders, the deepening of the voice, and also the growth of the penis. So we see here how also the different hormones in the male gonads, it's going to be related to sex, but we saw also how it's related to the growth of different parts that are more related to masculine development, but we saw how the women's also have it in a lower quantity. Let's continue then speaking about the cognitive organ or Jnanendriya. We're just going to mention it, which is the tongue, because we already spoke how it's influencing and how we can translate it in our spiritual path for this discrimination to what is helpful or harmful in our development. So the Jnanendriya of this center is the tongue for tasting. The Karmendriya, or the organ of actions, are the genitals for reproduction. And according to the Kashmir Shaivism, it's going to be the hands for handling. The energetic channel or nadi is kuhu, and the bioelement or dosha, it's going to be kapha, which is a watery element. The vital air is dhyana, and the sheath of kosha is going to be pranamaya kosha, the energetic body. The gemstones that are related to this center are the moss agate, the fire agate, the aquamarine, the alexandrite, and the amazonite, just to mention a few. If you want to know more, there are many more enumerated in the book. You can go to the book to dwell if you're interested in the different stones that are related to the Svadhisthana chakra. The fragrance is vanilla, and the aromatherapy oils are going to be sandalwood, jasmine, and rose, to mention a few. You can go to the book also to know more. The planet or graha of this center is Brahaspati or Jupiter. We are going to finalize by sharing secondary chakras that are related to this one, to the Svadhisthana chakra, which are Tarala, Ramani, Tarani, Vanavi, Naini, Janti, Indrani, Astivakshi, Agnayi, Mamsapriya, Yama, Mahadamastra, Nairuti, and Dirga Damastra. This is everything for this class. As we saw, we learned so many other things in regards to this center, and we saw the connection from all the previous classes until this one in regards to the desire, the dangers of pursuing this desire, this sexuality, the different attitudes from the libertine, this permissive one, the neurotic one, that one that makes you obsessive, which is contraction, that's the Puritan, and then the one of the sublimation. And we saw how the taste, the tongue, the crocodile is going also to provide us more information in regards to this center. And we learn also now about the Tri-Dosha and how all these bioelements are going to be influencing in us, in our health, and how we can use it in our path to self-realization. This is everything for today. In our next class, we're going to delve into the different symptoms, how this center is going to influence in ourselves, both physically and psychologically. And we're also going to share some techniques in order to open this center. Thank you very much for joining us today. Jai Prabhuji.